Mahathir Mohamad, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Our program yesterday began with a simple reading by a little boy. I paraphrase, all your armies, tanks, soldiers, against a boy holding a stone, standing there all alone. In a war, who is the bully? In a war, who stands with you in committing war crimes? Who will desert you? Who will turn against you? Who will profit from you? In the name of self-preservation, would a man turn against another? And in the name of an ideal, would a man smite another until there is no one left? There's much to be loathed and condemned about these atrocities, but in war, determination awakes and the strength of the human spirit prevails. There's also much to be admired about the resilience of humankind. Who is weak, who is strong, who is right, who is wrong. Ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce the next moderator for this session, Tan Sri Nik Yaakob. He's Vice Chairman of the Perdana Global Peace Organization, the Executive Director of the Perdana Leadership Foundation, and formerly Group CEO of Sime Darby Group.
Thank you, Wan, for mixing up my name with my father. Yang amat berbahagia, Tuan Dr. Mahathir, distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon and welcome back. I trust you have enjoyed your lunch and are now fully fueled for our next panel session. But before we begin, may I have the pleasure of inviting our four eminent speakers who will be speaking in this session today. Tan Sri Sanusi Junid, Ms. Hana Bayati, Brother Muhammad Umar, and Mr. Mozambique. Ladies and gentlemen, this session is on peace and justice. And we will have our four eminent speakers giving their views on the challenge of attaining peace through criminalizing war and getting justice when one doesn't have the one is not. Good afternoon, Yang Bahagia Tuan Dr. Siti. And getting justice when one is not in the position of strength. Perhaps after this panel presentation, we'll get an answer to the question of whether the dispensation of justice is the exclusive right of the victor or the mighty, or do we as common people have a duty and the avenue to stand up and be counted on this issue when there is blatant injustice. Now, you know, Tan Sri is also an avid student of history. And thank you for pointing to us that we should learn from history. Thank you once again, Tan Sri. Our next speaker is Brother Muhammad Umar, who is the chairman of the Ramadhan Foundation, which is dedicated to Muslim unity. In this capacity, he has appeared on numerous TV and radio interviews and in fact was the youngest person ever to be invited on BBC's Hard Talk show post the 7th July 2005 London bombings. He has delivered lectures throughout the UK, Europe, and USA, and is a staunch supporter of our campaign to criminalize war. Muhammad, if you please.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين محمد بن عبد الله سيد الأولين والآخرين وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم أما بعد Tun Dr. Mahathir Muhammad, Tun Dr. Siti Hashma, respectful members of our panel, and my dear respectful brothers of faith and humanity. I greet you with the greeting of Salam, which is peace, which connects or is part of the subject of today, which is about peace and justice. Now, before I start, just over 2 years ago, I was on this podium, and I began my speech or my deliberation to you by sharing with you a story, a tale from Afghanistan. I don't know if you remember it, but I'll tell you it again. There was an American that went to Afghanistan to seek enlightenment. And when he went to Afghanistan, he met the first Afghani, and he said to him, "Who is the most learned individual in your land? Who is the most intellectual person in your land?" The Afghani, who knew no English, turned to him and said, "Nami Fahman," which means, "I don't know what the hell you're talking about," which is a close translation. So the American went to seek this person called Nami Fahman. And he came across a funeral procession. And when he got there, he said again, out of curiosity, to one of the people at the funeral, "Who's that man who's passed away?" Again, the Afghani knew no English, said, "Nami Fahman." And some say it's Nami Sahman. I'm not a Afghani, so I can't tell you the exact pronunciation of it, but he said that word. So the American said, "Oh, to think that he just passed away and I just missed him." So the moral of this story is that we have to understand people before we can benefit from them. Before you can actually take any benefit from anyone, you need to understand their culture, you need to understand their background, you need to understand what those individuals are. So you need to understand people, and in the current crisis that we find around the world, there's too many people shouting without understanding what each side is actually saying. The subject is peace and justice. Both of these words, peace and justice, in my opinion, are coherent in its definition to the meaning of both of them. What do I mean? In other words, when we enforce peace and justice in society, we then become what we call, or what I call, moral, or a society of morality, or society, which somebody mentioned the other day, which is civilized. In other words, when we implement what we call the points of peace and justice into our lives, we then become what we call civilized people. And the concept of justice, and I give you the definition of Plato. He actually said it meant being righteous, fair, and treating others with equality. It means being righteous, it means being fair, and treating others with equality. In other words, giving individuals their God-given right. Their God-given right to what? To live in peace and tranquility, to have shelter, to have clothing, to live without the fear of what religion I belong to, or what creed I belong to. Am I Iraqi? It doesn't matter. Somebody mentioned, and I mentioned it to our Iraqi brothers, that in your land in Iraq, you never had something called Shia or Sunni. We shouldn't really have this anywhere in the world. We shouldn't distinguish between Muslim and Christians and Jews. We have all our religions. I am a Muslim, I follow my belief. The Christians follow their belief, the Jews follow their belief, but we have to have respect and honor for each other. And when we develop and we cultivate that respect and honor into ourselves, we then develop what we call a society that's based upon morality. And that's not just for faith, that's even for people who don't believe in faith. We have to have love and respect for those people who don't believe in what we say. You see, when we come to that,